Hello and welcome to the Game Theory Podcast. I'm your host, Sam Vecini. We are presented by The Athletic. Today on the show, Dave DuFour is in the building. We're here. We're going to talk all about 2023 NBA All-Star selections. We're going to pick our own reserves. We're going to dive into the controversy surrounding the starters and Joel Embiid at the top. But first, what's going on, buddy? Dave, how you doing?
I'm great. I'm an all-star, I was chosen to choose the all-star reserve. So I think, doesn't that make me a captain?
I think you're a captain.
An all-star captain. I'm putting it on the resume.
Certainly the captain of the Athletics podcasting team. I think there's no doubt about that.
I'll take it.
Yeah.
Me and Zach Harper picking teams. I wonder who we'd pick last. Probably we'd be fighting to choose Jay King last, I think.
Yeah, that works for me. I think that's about right.
Yeah.
So, like I said at the top, this podcast, this episode, it's all about the All-Star game. It's all about making our own selections. I believe that those selections come tomorrow night, if I remember correctly, right, Dave?
Yes, Thursday. Yeah, we're Thursday. So 2 days.
So 2 nights from now.
Yeah.
Okay, even better. We get a longer tail on this show.
That's it. Yeah.
So we're going to jump in. We're going to talk all about that. But first, I want to start with the All-Star starters. So in the Western Conference, the fans, media, and players selected in the front court, Nikola Vucevic, LeBron James, and Zion Williamson. In the backcourt, Stephen Curry and Luka Doncic. In the Eastern Conference, the backcourt is Kyrie Irving and Donovan Mitchell. The front court is Kevin Durant, Giannis Antetokounmpo, and Jason Tatum. Is there anything that immediately stands out to you about that on the East side or the West side?
Well, Zion just has barely played. I think that's a problem for me. Other than that, I mean, look, man, it's a fan vote. So it's a fan game. I don't want to be the guy who's like, well, the fans are dumb, because the fans actually are the ones that, like, it's an all-star game. It doesn't matter. I want to see Zion do cool stuff too. And so I'm just okay with it. I hope he can play, actually, if he's healthy. I mean, again, this is a good showcase for the league. And, he was having a really nice year until he had to miss this time. And obviously the Pelicans kind of, fell off a cliff without him and Ingram. But I don't know, man. I think that's the only one. If we're going based on merit, obviously you got to play games to be there. So, and you and I think we talked about this before the show, but we sort of accounted for that in our reserve selections, because the fan vote is going. I mean, Russell Westbrook was pretty high up on the fan vote, and I think we can all agree he hasn't played like an all-star. But, the fan vote does this every year. So, yeah, it's just a Zion thing to me.
Yeah, so we're going to talk about this when we get into like criteria for how we picked reserves and everything. But I will say, kind of from the jump, I set kind of a 30-game cutoff. I felt like that was the reasonable spot. And then also considered minutes played in my selections to some extent, as we'll talk about a little bit later on. I do think that being on the court is important, especially this season when everything is so tightly bunched in terms of how good these guys have been. We are in the midst of what, in my opinion, has been the best, like, all-star, star-laden season in the NBA in many years, many years at this point. So I think we should kind of default to the guys that have played a lot. That's just me. But you mentioned Zion. Zion was kind of a stunner to me for sure. He was a top 10 player in the minutes he played this season. I don't know that I could quite get there with him as a starter. The obvious controversy to me was Joel Embiid being left off of the starters. Look, I would have Joel Embiid as a starter. I think that, when I did my midseason MVP rankings, I had him third of this group of, this four of the top 7 players in the league are Eastern Conference front court players, because Durant, Giannis, Jason Tatum, and Joel Embiid are all so good. They are unbelievable level players, and someone was always going to be left out. It's the way that all-star voting works. There was always going to be a controversy. I personally would have left out Jason Tatum. I don't know if that's right or wrong. Probably not right, if I'm being completely honest. I don't feel good about any of it. But I do think Joel Embiid should be starting this All-Star game, and I understand why Philadelphia fans are disappointed because it does just feel like this continuing batch of slights toward Joel Embiid from backup and MVP for a couple of straight years.
See, but those aren't slights to me.
Yeah.
Come on, man. You came in second in MVP to the MVP 2 years in a row. Okay.
Yeah.
That's not a slight. If anything, it's a good story. I just don't think it's a slight.
I get what you're saying. Yeah, this is a slight. I think that this is the perceived thing because look, the media in general, they pit one versus the other, right? This is what happens, right? We do this. I do it. I'm guilty of it, right? We pit one versus the other all the time. And because of that, it feels like these guys, someone is losing. And it feels like Joel Embiid is losing these conversations all the time, as opposed to winning them, despite the fact that, like you said, losing a conversation against Nikola Jokic, it means being the second best player in the league, as opposed to being losing a conversation with someone. So I can understand why Philadelphia fans are a little bit disappointed. I would add Joel in the All-Star game, starting it and being there and dominating. I think he's unbelievable. We saw in the game over the weekend against Nikola Jokic, he took that personally, to quote Michael Jordan.
And honestly, like, we're missing out on some cool moments because whenever these two do match up, I think Joel does kind of kick it into extra gear. And I would like to see that in an All-Star game because I think Joel would bring the same sort of intensity that he brought to that match. Maybe not quite the same. He's not going to go as hard. It's not going to be like it's Ben Simmons out there, or so to speak. But I think we're missing out. But it's also circumstantial. If Jason Tatum was listed as a guard, Joel Embiid is starting. There's just no doubt in my mind. So, I mean, I don't know. I think that, there are a lot of bones we could pick. Maybe choosing the starters this way isn't the way to go. Maybe caring about positions isn't the way to go. You just start 5 guys and you don't care whether they're a guard or a forward or a big or a wing or assistant coach. Who cares? If you get voted in, you're voted in, and you're in that top 5, you're a starter. I don't care what position you are, and just do that. And then let everything else shake out. It's basketball. Like, they'll be fine. If for some reason you have Jokic and Embiid starting on the same team, I guess what? That would just be cool. No one's going to complain, right? Like it's All-Star game. Lean into it. Make it weird. Let it be weird. So I just think, I hope he doesn't take it as disrespect. He's an All-Star. He's going to be an All-Star. He's probably going to be the runner-up for MVP again this year. That's a pretty damn good career. Now, he needs to do some stuff like win some games and go to a finals and stuff like that. But, so does Jokic. But yeah, I listened to his comments the other day after that game where he talked about the disrespect thing. And you could tell that, yes, he feels disrespected, but also like he is interested in making a statement on the court. And he brought up the record, like what they've been doing. And I think that that's kind of an important turn for Joel in his career, where it does seem like he's very focused on winning basketball games. I love that. So if he's got a chip on his shoulder because of the MVP, it's working out for us.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Completely agree. I love watching Joel Embiid. I love watching him play. By the way, this season, I think it's probably been his best season. This is the year where he has combined that dominant scoring, where he's leading the league in scoring, in addition to actually defending at an exceptionally high level as well this year. This is a top 3 defense in the league. And yeah, guys like DeAnthony Melton, guys like PJ Tucker, certainly, as we saw in the game on Sunday, they've really, really helped lift the level of the Philadelphia 76ers across the board defensively, bringing Matisse Thybulle off the bench just to be a menace for a little bit of time. It all helps. But it's Joel that's really carrying the load on the interior. And, look, this, like I said, if this is his best season, he should be starting the All-Star game. So that's firmly where I feel about it.
It is going to be weird if he wins MVP, which to me, right now, it's a 2-man race. I have him and Jokic neck and neck for the MVP right now. And in particular, this head-to-head matchup, it does matter to me, right? Like, that mattered. That was a statement game. Joel Embiid took it as a statement game, and he made a statement. So I care about that kind of stuff when, because the MVP is a narrative award anyway. It's purely a narrative award. Yeah, this you need stats and you need success, but the narrative is what sets the standard. I mean, Jokic doesn't win the MVP last year if they if they have the season they have, but at full strength. The context
Yeah.
of the season matters. So I think with Embiid, man, like he's up there now, especially after that performance.
Yeah, I mean, the three I've got right now, just because Kevin Durant has missed a bit of time here, are Luka, Jokic, and Embiid. And that's kind of where we're at in this situation here for MVP. And, I think there's a real chance that Durant could maybe sneak back in if he gets healthy, and we'll see where that goes. I mean, he was unbelievable, like carrying the Brooklyn Nets to an unbelievable season, but we'll see where it goes. Okay, let's jump into our criteria for All-Star reserves. We're going to start with the Eastern Conference. What did you look for when trying to pick this? Obviously, it's so amorphous. It's so, you can do this 97 different ways, right? But what did you look for when trying to pick these teams?
Well, I mostly look for, guys who were on winners, who were contributing to winning. Obviously, we like to reward good defense and efficient offense. But, I also value games played. So Kevin Durant, wouldn't have made it for me. I don't think. I think he's missed too many games. So if he had relied on me to make a reserve team, might not have picked him. So I care about the games played, and I care about, how your team is doing. It's hard to be an all-star on a loser to me.
Yeah. For the most part, I agree. So like someone like I can't imagine picking like Paulo Banchero, for instance, who I know finished high in the in the player vote. Actually, I think he finished 8th among players in front court voting. I just can't. I can't pick that guy.
I think he's an all-star caliber guy. Like he's gonna be an all-star player.
But
his statistics aren't overwhelming enough for me to be like, oh yeah. I mean, he should be on there. I mean,
and frankly, I would pick Franz Wagner over him, if I'm being completely honest, in Orlando. But the other thing is that have you been watching the Orlando Magic recently, Dave?
They're scrappy.
Do you know what their record is in their last 27 games?
You know what? They're like 20-31 or 20-32 overall, but I don't know. They're 10 and something in their last 15, or 10-5 in their last 15 or something.
Yeah, they're 15 and 12 in their last 27.
Okay.
They have a positive net rating. Like, they're good. And by the way, that last 27 game span, the reason that you pick this as the marker is when Markelle Fultz and Cole Anthony got off of their minutes restrictions and started to be able to play like full games. Magic rule. I talked about the Magic last week on the pod. I don't need to do it again. But minutes played definitely matters for me. Games played definitely matters for me. Again, the reason for that is just that everything is so tight this year that I wanted to use it as a real kind of tiebreaker, almost more than anything. And that especially came up in the Western Conference. We'll talk about guys like Devin Booker, Anthony Davis. I set a games played marker of 30 in terms of where I wanted guys to have at least played. That's, something like 55% of games. It's not that much. Like it's not that high. I don't think I'm setting the bar drastically above where it should be. It also knocks out Kawhi Leonard, who, by the way, has been phenomenal in the games that he has played, especially over the course of the back half of the 27 he's played. He played 27 games. There are teams that have played 54. That's like half the season. I decided in a year where it's so close, I'm setting a 30-game cutoff. It's not a unreasonable number, but I want to reward the guys that have been on the court at the very least.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's jump in. Eastern Conference All-Star reserves. Do you want to start in the backcourt or the front court, Dave? Because I think both are an absolute shit show.
Either you lead, whichever.
Okay.
I mean, we should start with Embiid, right?
Well, okay, let's go to the front court. Yeah, because Embiid is the obvious one. So Joel Embiid is going to get one of these front court spots. To me, that leaves kind of a big group of front court guys to consider now for what could be 3 spots. Pascal Siakam, Bam Adebayo, Jimmy Butler, DeMar DeRozan were the 4 I considered. essentially for, and Julius Randle. So it's 5 for 3 spots, basically. And that's a hard group to kind of parse through, I think. The top guy that I picked was Bam Adebayo. I think that he combines offense and defense in the best way out of this group. You look at the numbers, he's been absolutely outstanding this year. He's averaging, what is it? I believe it's 21 points, 10 rebounds, 3 assists, shooting 54% from the field, 79% from the line. He's also been, in my opinion, a top 3 defender in the NBA this season. That's just an all-star season. He is the guy on the Miami Heat that is carrying them. I've seen people, choose Jimmy Butler as their all-star from the Heat. I absolutely do not buy that. I don't see it. I think Bam has been the guy that has carried the load for them all season. It has to be Bam Adebayo is my second forward pick behind Joel Embiid.
Yeah, and that's mine as well. Bam Adebayo, for all the reasons you listed. It's his most efficient offensive season. I think he's really done a good job of being more aggressive, which has been the knock on him the last couple of years. They needed him to create more for himself, and he finally is doing that. So, and you mentioned the defensive acumen that he's been displaying this season. He's in the defensive player of the year conversation. When you look at what he's doing with the personnel around him, Jimmy Butler's in and out of the lineup. Everyone's in and out of the lineup in Miami, except for Bam. Bam plays, and Bam, he lifts he's a rising tide for the defense. So, yeah, he's been spectacular.
Yeah, he's just been absolutely phenomenal all season. I know Jimmy leads him in scoring. I know that, I think that he's averaging like 5 assists per game, and he's been terrific on defense. This is a great Jimmy Butler year again. And I think Jimmy Butler absolutely is an all-star consideration, but there's just no way to me that if you watch the Heat consistently, you can say that Jimmy is the guy over Bam at this point of the season. Maybe that changes by the end point of the season, and they're a little bit closer in terms of minutes played, games played, everything like that.
Yeah, okay. And we know who's going to be in the playoffs. That's the thing about Jimmy Butler.
Totally right.
And I think that he probably knows this too. Not making an all-star team.
Yeah.
I don't
think he cares.
Yeah.
I don't think he cares. He might like the few days off. Maybe he'll go down, maybe he'll stay in Miami. Have a good time. Okay. My next guy, I picked Pascal Siakam over Randle, Butler, and DeRozan. Siakam, to me, has been the best kind of mix of scoring, playmaking, defensive capability. He covers so many holes for the Toronto Raptors. He's responsible for creating so many shots for them in an offense that looks like absolute dog shit at times. And I know that they're sitting in like 10th in offensive efficiency right now. But if you talk to any Raptors fan, you watch the Raptors regularly, that half-court offense just gets absolutely miserable to watch way too often. Siakam is the guy that carries the load there. And we're seeing a bit of a resurgence from Fred VanVleet, which is great. We're seeing Scotty Barnes really develop as a playmaker, I think, over the course of this last month. They've started utilizing him a little bit more in short rolls. They're starting to use his processing speed a little bit better. But Siakam's the guy. He is the guy at the center of it all. I had to pick Siakam.
Yeah, same. He's 26, 8 rebounds, 6 assists a game, and 6 assists with no shooting. Yeah, which is just, this is almost impossible to do. What he's able to do for them in transition is huge because, as you mentioned, that half-court offense just is non-existent. And he stands out on the defensive end in a defense that sometimes, it can get
also messy,
a little ball watchy, you know what I mean? And so, look, Pascal Siakam is a top 20 player in the NBA, and him being an all-star shouldn't be a shock to anybody. He's a guy that other teams are lining up hoping they can get.
Yep. Okay. Let's go to the guards now. I've got a big group here that I considered in the guards.
Well, wait. I have another pick.
Let's do the guards and then let's do the 2
wild card I forgot the wild card spots. Yes.
Yeah, 3 forwards and then 2 wild cards.
Got it.
I also have another forward in there. But let's go to the guards. For the guards, I have got Jaylen Brown, Trae Young, Jalen Brunson, Drew Holiday, James Harden, Darius Garland. is my big mix of guards. And this was very difficult to parse through. This was very, very hard. My number one choice was a bit easy, though. I picked Jaylen Brown. I think he is the very obvious selection here. The Celtics are the number one team in the NBA this season. They are well deserving of having 2 All-Stars. Jaylen Brown is averaging 27.7 rebounds, 3 assists. He plays solid on-ball defense. This team desperately needs his shot creation all of the time, essentially. You watch that Lakers game, he was absolutely a monster late in the game when they needed it most. He's been consistently great all season. I think Jaylen Brown is the number one backcourt pick.
Yeah, I mean, and he's paired really nicely with Jalen Brunson, right? Brunson's effectiveness has gone up since Julius Randle kind of rediscovered.
I said Jaylen Brown, not Brunson. Yeah. But yeah,
my bad. I was thinking about my own pick here. But yes, I also have Jaylen Brown. I feel like we have the same team, Sam.
We might.
I also have Jaylen Brown, who is a no-brainer. I mean, he is the 1B to Tatum's 1A. I mentioned this the other day. How unique it is to have a guy who so perfectly complements your main star. When things get tight for Jason Tatum late, that seems to be when Jaylen Brown turns up the aggressiveness and attacks the basket, which is exactly what the Boston Celtics need. When they start getting into that hot potato offense, we're gonna just go ISO, abandon our principles. Jaylen Brown abandons it in the right way by attacking and trying to get to the rack, and then ultimately getting to the free throw line. I think that his development and evolution as a guy who can get to the line consistently. I mean, you could draw a straight line between that and his skill with the basketball in his hands. I mean, this is a guy who couldn't dribble and sometimes still can't, but has done a much better job this year. I think coming out, like, he seems to know that he is a guy that's capable every night of being the best player on the court. Yeah. And that's new in the last, I'd say year.
Yeah, I think the handle is exactly it, man. Like, I think that he knows now that he can get to his spots just a little bit easier. Just, as you mentioned, the free throw rate is up. He's averaging 5.5 free throws per game. That's the highest number of his career so far. He consistently attacks the basket. He's been really, really good and really, really consistent. Do you remember the conversations? Do you remember the stupid ass conversations people had about Jaylen Brunson or Jaylen Brown?
I don't know, man. I was calling him modern Scottie Pippen from the day he was drafted, and people thought I was crazy.
Freaking Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum can't play together, Dave. I don't know if you knew that.
Oh yeah, neither could Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen, right? Like, these two guys that are really good basketball players can't figure it out. It's so, I don't know, man. Is it good to have a bunch of guys on your team that can dribble and shoot and defend? Or not?
Yeah, I don't know.
The jury's out.
Is that good? Is that what teams are looking for?
It's like Garland and Mitchell. Teams? Can you have two guards that can shoot the crap out of the ball? I just don't know.
Okay, so the next guard spot. This was a really hard one. I kind of talked about this on the last episode, and I think people are going to be upset. I picked James Harden. I picked James Harden over Tyrese Haliburton. I picked James Harden over Drew Holiday, over Darius Garland, over everybody. And here's why. James Harden, if you look at the numbers this season, averaging 21 points, 11 assists, 6 rebounds. Yeah, he's only played 33 games. And I get that, that might be a problem for some people. And I think it's reasonable for it to be a problem for some people. I set my cutoff at 30 games. I am abiding by my rules. Basically, you can have your own rules. Harden this season, I think, has done the best job of his career in terms of playing unselfishly, in terms of getting everybody in the offense involved. His, assist number, it's not the highest number of his career. He averaged 11.2 in 2017. But I think it's just the best mix of everything. You look at the turnovers that year, he averaged 5.7 of them. This year, he's down to 3.5. He is just consistently dominating the game when Joel Embiid is on the court in that 2-man game where they have Embiid short roll or they'll have him roll all the way to the basket. He's dominating the game when Joel Embiid is off the court. This team is winning all of its minutes without Joel Embiid, with James Harden on the court. They have a +2 net rating, if I remember correctly, in those settings. it's just a remarkable set of it's a remarkable way that James Harden has completely fit. I had my worries. I talked with Mo DeKeel last year at the deadline about the way that Harden and Embiid would fit in terms of Joel likes the mid post. Joel likes to short roll into that area. Harden, he likes to try and drive. Are those driving angles going to be there? Is everything going to work in the way that they want it to? Obviously, it took a bit of time. I didn't think it was quite smooth last year necessarily, but this year it's seamless. This year, Harden has figured out how to space, how to take that step back. Two great players figuring out how to play together. It's been kind of like perfect every single time I watch them in ball screens. So I get that he does not have the burden that Tyrese Haliburton does. At the end of the day, I think it is so much harder in the NBA to go from taking a team from like being able to win 25% of their games to winning 50% of the games, like Haliburton is for the Pacers, to taking a team from winning 50% of their games to winning like 70% of their games, as Harden and Embiid are for the 76ers. I just think it's way harder to take that second step across the league. So I went with Harden here. We're going to get to Haliburton in a minute. I'm sure of it. But do you have Harden on your team?
I do have Harden on my team. I have Haliburton above Harden, but we can talk Harden. Yeah. I mean, I think for all the reasons that you listed, this has been a great season from Harden. It's under the radar, which is funny to say about James Harden, but it's under the radar because it's been so clean and efficient. This guy is just not turning the ball over. He's not, I'm not going to say he's coasting through these games until the fourth quarter where he seems to have a little bit of an extra burst, but it does seem as he's picking his spots early so that he can take over late. And he's throwing some of these little pocket passes behind the back, between the legs, in tight pick and roll space with Joel Embiid.
Yep.
And Joel's got beautiful hands, which may be the best hands that Harden's ever been able to do pick and rolls with.
Yeah.
And man, that is fun to watch for a basketball nerd. So yeah, I think Harden he's been great. We were all writing him off, and look, he just proved us wrong. He's in pretty good shape. And I think basketball wise, man, he's playing some fun basketball to watch. It's still the grift, you still got to deal with all the free throws, but it's at least entertaining. When you watch it on Synergy, it's fun. When you don't have to watch the free throws, it's great.
Here's the good news. James Harden taking 6 free throws per game this year. Much lower than normal.
That is good news.
Okay.
All of them after the 5-minute mark in the fourth quarter.
So let's talk about Haliburton now, because I have Haliburton as my first wild card pick. He's just like got to be on the team, in my opinion. I love Tyrese. I think he's been my favorite player in the NBA, in the entire NBA this season, point blank. He's averaging 20 points, 10 assists, 4 rebounds per game, shooting 48% from the field, 40% from 3, 88% from the line. He is in every way just this metronome of efficient basketball, efficient decision-making. He leads and carries this high-paced transition attack. If you've watched the Pacers recently, it's a lot of, their transition possessions are Ben Mathurin puts his head down, seeks out contact, tries to score at the bucket. When you watch Haliburton, it's like, okay, it's a little bit slower, but it's methodical. He picks out trailers really well. He picks out, exactly who he's looking for every single time on the court. It's just the way that this Pacers offense runs with him, without him. You can just see how incredibly, remarkably valuable this human being is to any basketball team, let alone this Indiana Pacers team that is just completely, utterly fallen off of a cliff without him in a uniform.
Yeah, his shot selection really stands out to me as a young guy. He seems to get himself open without the ball to a degree that a lot of guys, as good as he is in the pick and roll, a lot of guys are not as good off the ball, but I think he's really nice off the ball. He's a solid, complete player. And there's just not a lot of guys his age that are doing, like, leading a team the way that he has.
Yeah.
And I think you got to give him credit for that as well. In addition to just performing, leading the league in assists, per game right now, and also playing good defense. I mean, almost 2 steals a game, a half a block a game, which for a guard, and especially in that system, he's not going to get a ton of blocks as it is. But he is every bit an all-star player. I mean, they're a tanking team that couldn't tank because he's too competent at his job, and also just really good and talented. I mean, I think he's a better player than Domantas Sabonis right now. I would like if you said pick one, I'm picking Tyrese Haliburton every day of the week. And I know that people are enamored with Sabonis in Sacramento, but I think Haliburton has a higher ceiling today, like as in this season, has a higher ceiling on a per game basis than Domantas Sabonis. Now Sabonis has a super high floor, and they're always now going to be compared because of this trade. But Haliburton is an all-star, no doubt. He's been amazing this year.
Yeah, look, I agree with you. I just don't want to wade into the Sabonis Haliburton wars right now.
I do
because they're both going to be all stars. So I'm just not. I want to celebrate.
Oh yeah, good. I don't have Sabonis on my list. So
oh god, we're gonna have to. We'll get into that in a minute. Yeah. Okay, last wild card in the East. We are down to Julius Randle, Jimmy Butler, Darius Garland, DeMar DeRozan, Drew Holiday, Trae Young, Jalen Brunson. Okay, so for me, this came down to Jalen Brunson, Julius Randle, Jimmy Butler. Darius Garland, by the way, is having a phenomenal season that I think deserves so much more credit than what it's getting. He's averaging 22 points per game, which is actually a career high. He's averaging more points than he averaged last year. He's actually averaging fewer assists just by a little bit than what he averaged last year. But like his production has not fallen off one single bit, playing with Donovan Mitchell, who dominates the ball at an exceptionally high level. Like Darius Garland has been absolutely ridiculously good this season. He was the guy that I think I felt bad about leaving off. Jalen Brunson, I do think that Darius Garland's having a bit better of a season than Brunson, if I'm being completely honest. I think that Brunson has been kind of the leader of that Knicks offense, and that Knicks offense has been absolutely great. They are currently 6th in the NBA in offensive efficiency, and in large part it's because of the ruthless efficiency with which Brunson runs the show and keeps everything in place. I feel bad about not including him. I think last season he would have been an all-star for sure in the Eastern Conference. Jimmy Butler, I think, has been great. I just ultimately kind of defaulted to some of these guys that have played a few more games. Jimmy's played 36 games. Jalen Brunson has played, I believe, like 1,700 minutes. Darius Garland is up to about 1,600 minutes. Jimmy Butler, I believe, right now is at about 1,000. No, he's at 1,200 minutes. I kind of use minutes played, given that it's like 25 to 35% more. For some of these guys, just as a little bit of a difference maker. At the end of the day, I went Julius Randle. I'll be honest, like I didn't really even consider Trae Young that hard. Like I considered him, but he was a pretty easy knockout for me just because of the inefficiency this season and because of the defense. I know he's averaging 27 and 10. You have to consider someone that's averaging 27 and 10. But at the end of the day, this is a guy that has a true shooting percentage that is like barely at league average. And the defense is just a substantial negative every time he's out there. Julius Randle, on the other hand, has been just an absolute monster. And I've been pretty strong on the bandwagon from the start of the season that I thought Jalen Brunson was the guy. I think that that's turned kind of over the course of the last couple of weeks, just given the way that Randle has continued this tear. You can just kind of look at it from right around Thanksgiving until now. Julius Randle is averaging 27 points, 12 rebounds, 5 assists on 46% from the field, 35% from 3 on 9 attempts per game, only turning it over 2.6 times. So he has almost a 2-to-1 assist turnover ratio. He's getting to the line 8 times per game. He's just been utterly dominant for like a 30 to 35 game stretch now. Like he's been one of the 15 best players in the league for a 30 to 35 game stretch now. And I think I kind of just have to reward that at the end of the day, especially given that he also played 54 games, played a crazy amount of minutes. He's been just a little bit more valuable than the rest of these guys for me. So I went Julius Randle as my last wild card spot.
Same. And again, I was getting into it before. I think that a lot of the credit that Brunson deserves, you could share with Randle.
Yeah.
Brunson's season, right? In a lot of ways, because they have paired up nicely together, I think. And Randle,
Yeah.
It's when he signed that contract, he looks just like the guy who signed the contract. Let's say that. I think defensively, you can trust him on an island again. His rebounding has been spectacular this year. He's been really physical, actually, on the boards, which I appreciate. And screen setting. I know it's a funny thing to say, but like his screen setting opens stuff up for all those guards.
Yeah.
So you add that into his shooting efficiency being back up to what we want out of Julius Randle. And yeah, I think he's an easy choice. The two-way play makes it pretty easy. Although, got to give Jalen Brunson had a game-saving block the other day. So huge finish at the buzzer in that big win. So, but yeah, Randle's my pick too.
Is there anyone else that you considered outside of the names we've talked about so far?
No, not really. The injury, Brook Lopez is a name that comes to mind, but he kind of tailed off a little bit. Started the season out super hot, but everything's kind of tailed off for him and for the Bucks in general. But no, not really.
Yeah. Brook and Drew were kind of a tough to like kind of parse through for me, because Brook has played considerably more minutes than Drew has at this point. I think probably 800 more minutes, something like, or no, it's like 300 more minutes than Drew. I think Drew's probably been a little bit better, but Brook has also been a top 3 defender in the NBA at this point. In addition to providing the floor spacing and providing some real ability around the basket to score, I just kind of decided that Julius Randle was better than both of them. If I'm being completely honest, I just picked one.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's talk about the West, but before we do that, we're going to take a quick commercial break. All right, Dave. Let's start in the backcourt, because I think the backcourt is a little bit easier for the West. I think there are just two very obvious guys that you have to have in those two guard spots in the West.
Mm-hmm.
It's Ja Morant and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander.
Yes, to both.
It's just like you have to have those guys at the end of the day. So what about, let's start with Shai. What about Shai's game has stood out to you this season?
I mean, the scoring. the guy gets to the hoop and finishes around the basket. I mean, the way he finishes as a guard is insane. Actually, not pretty insane. It is insane. There's just no reason for it. And Ja is the same way. These are two of the best guard finishers in the league, and it shows in the stat sheet. Getting to the basket is still important in basketball, and these guys do it like nobody else. And when they get there, they actually finish. They go hand in hand there. I've got defensive concerns with both of these guys. Shai is definitely not a very good defender, but when you are that good of an offensive player, you're going to raise your team up no matter what. And I just think that his efficiency has been pretty great this year. The scoring really, really has stood out to me. I mean, he's a legit 30-point a game night guy.
Yeah, he is. I mean, he's also getting to the line more often than he ever has, and he's consistently been a guy that gets to the line all the time. But this season, he's averaging 10 free throws per game. And as a hater of the grifting, I feel like he's not really a grifter.
No, these are legit. Look, driving to the basket and going to the line is okay. The grift is, searching out rip throughs and flopping. And you can go to the line a lot and play honest basketball. Giannis plays honest basketball. Goes to the line a lot. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is an honest basketball merchant. He's not selling you any snake oil.
Well, I think that like his body mechanics, I talk about his body mechanics all the time on the show. He just is so good at like slithering through guys and like slaloming almost
He's really
through like
smooth.
players' feet in the lane that
Mhm.
like he gets them out of position and forces like contact.
He moves like a
Basically.
slinky.
Yeah, he does. That's a great way to put it. He moves like a slinky. And I think he puts himself just in position to get to the line all the time. The passing, I think, has been pretty good this year. The turnovers are a little bit up, but whatever. When you play this kind of role on a team
Yeah.
and or you have a 32% usage rate, you're going to have 3 turnovers a game just because that's the way it works in the NBA.
Mhm.
Ja Morant now. Ja Morant has been one of the most fun players in the league. He is leading the number 2 seed Memphis Grizzlies currently back to the playoffs. And he's averaging 27 points, 8 assists. I think this has been his best passing season of his career. And that's saying a lot because I think he's been a really high-level passer. He consistently attacks the rim at a very high level. I mean, there's so much to enjoy about what Ja Morant brings to the table.
He also gets like 3 highlights a game,
Yeah.
The chase down blocks that fool people into thinking that he can play defense. Ja Morant and his ability to get to the paint. I mean, David Thorpe calls him modern Iverson. I think that's a pretty good comparison. The way he moves, he is incredibly explosive, and not just as a leaper, but as a runner. I mean, his first step is lightning fast, and he is the straw that stirs the drink for Memphis. And it's funny that people will try to devalue what he brings to the table because they're able to withstand, games without him. But then when you go back and you watch the tape in the playoffs, and what he does getting to the paint, especially like that Utah series where he just carves up one of the best defenses in the regular season in the league. Yeah, I mean, Ja Morant, if he's not an all-star, there is no all-star game.
Yeah, I think that's dead on. Okay, let's go to the forwards now. I have a feeling that this is going to be a fun conversation because my first pick was Domantas Sabonis, and you do not have Sabonis on your team. I will give the pitch. Before you get into this, let me give the pitch for Sabonis because I want this to be a positive conversation, and I want Kings fans to not have a meltdown. Sabonis this season, 18 points, 12 rebounds, 7 assists per game, 61% from the field. Doesn't take a ton of threes, but he's making them at 36%. Gets to the line quite a bit now, shooting 75% from the line. I think that his scoring season has actually gone a little bit underrated just in terms of his ability to be as efficient as he is, to derive efficient shots around the basket. That ability just to put his shoulder into somebody and take that little flip shot. Just the way he kind of bails out their offense occasionally with his game on the block. Not that this is an offense that needs bailing out all that often. This is the best offense in the league. But I think he's the part that makes this the best offense in the league is his unbelievable ability to initiate offense in these dribble handoffs, these pistol actions, these, zoom actions up from the corner with guys like Kevin Huerter and Keegan Murray. They're so creative in the way that they use their floor spacers. They're creative in the way that they use De'Aaron Fox. And the reason that they can be that creative is Domantas Sabonis. This is a team that is very clearly in the playoffs. I think Sabonis is the bigger reason why, as opposed to De'Aaron Fox. And I had to give Sabonis his flowers. I think he's been unbelievable this season. Dave, hate away.
All right, listen. You can't hate on the numbers, and you can't hate on the winning. But I can hate on the aesthetics. I just don't want to see Domantas Sabonis in an all-star game. I need a dunker.
Man.
I need a dunker. I went with Aaron Gordon.
He's going to throw.
Listen,
look, Aaron has a case.
Aaron Gordon, I think what he's done for them defensively, and they're the best team in the West. And I like to give those, I like to give consideration to the teams winning. And I think Aaron Gordon has been an all-star this season. And it was a tough choice between Aaron Gordon and Domantas Sabonis for me. I went the other way with the Fox and Sabonis conversation. Yeah. I leaned Fox. I think Fox has been instrumental to their success in a way that Sabonis, again, he's solid. He's very good. And he's, I think, been their second best player. But Fox has been the guy who really stirs the drink, has created havoc on opposing defenses to set up Sabonis to be able to make all those plays. I mean, 7 assists a game for a big is nothing to sneeze at, especially since, this is not a guy like Jokic that touches the ball every single possession. So he's having a great year, and I can't knock the selection. But, it's just not for me.
So, look, there is a real case that De'Aaron, he certainly leads their transition attack. They play at a tempo that is in the top fourth, top quarter of the NBA for sure. They definitely work together in synergy, right? And we're going to talk about De'Aaron later as well when he gets.
This is a little bit of Brunson and Randall selection. To me.
There's a little bit of that, except they're better than the Knicks for sure.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about De'Aaron a little bit more.
If both these guys get picked, like if both of these guys, I'm fine with that. Yeah. I mean, I think Sabonis is he's having an all-star level season. He's likely going to make it. But for me, man, I value that dunk a little bit more.
So you mentioned Aaron Gordon, and I think that's a name that people will kind of like chafe at a little bit. For what it's worth, if you look at advanced numbers, like, let's go to dunks and threes, which I believe is Kosta Medvedovsky's website. Certainly the website that houses his metric EPM. And Aaron Gordon right now is 12th in the Western Conference in estimated wins added. And I think there is like a real case for him as an all-star. He is certainly someone that I considered. I ultimately left him off, but again, like I even beyond what you've done so far, I would love to hear the case for Aaron Gordon in terms of his importance to that Denver Nuggets team.
Well, again, I think that it's the defense for them that they need it. He has to play defense at the level that he plays. And then on offense, now he slid down a couple spots in the importance of his role, but look at his rebounding numbers. His efficiency is up through the roof, as you just mentioned. He's just been a guy. It's not quite like he's not a Zion Williamson level of talent, but he's playing a similar role where they don't run plays for Aaron Gordon. He makes plays, whether it's on the offensive glass or with timely cuts. He really has limited his 3-point shooting, much to his improvement. Right, he's become he's become more of an attacker and play finisher rather than trying to spot up. And I think that suited him much better. And part of the reason why they've been so successful, man. Aaron Gordon has been their second best player if you look at the entirety of the season. He's been their second best player. And I think that deserves a lot of consideration. Yeah,
no, I'm with you. Like I very, very strongly considered Aaron Gordon. He has been absolutely terrific this season. I love everything I've seen. Okay. My second pick behind Sabonis in the West for the front court was Lauri Markkanen. Do you have Lauri on your team?
No.
This is beautiful. The West is a mess, man. The West front court is an absolute mess. So Lauri Markkanen this season averaging 25 points, 9 rebounds, shooting 52% from the field, 43% from three, has a 67 true shooting percentage, 87% from the line. And by the way, he is getting to the line 5.7 times per game, almost doubling last season's output, essentially, when he was playing for the Cavaliers. He has been so critical for the Jazz, this Jazz team should be nowhere near 500. And I know that I made the case that it's easier to go from, a 30% winning percentage team to a 50% winning percentage team than it is to go from 50 to 75, such as Aaron Gordon is helping Denver do. But you just watch Markkanen every single night. It's the big shots. It's the defensive attention that he gets every single night and still produces, not just in terms of volume, but produces efficiently at that volume. He's the guy the teams are trying to stop every single game, and nobody can do it. Like, nobody has figured this out yet because he has just been so unstoppable in the mid post, from behind the 3-point line, scoring at the rim. Like he's been a phenomenal scorer at the basket this season. If you look at, I was surprised to learn that like if you look again at a lot of the advanced metrics, I have EPM up right now, so I'll just bring it up. Markkanen's currently 5th in estimated wins added. If you look at just the straight like EPM number, he is in the top 15 in the league right now. Lowry has been just an absolute stud this season for the Utah Jazz. I had to include him, especially once I decided on my rule of you have to play 30 games. It knocked out Anthony Davis. It knocked out Devin Booker. It knocked out Kawhi. It kind of opened things up. And by the way, like I think that it's deserved in terms of getting guys that have played real minutes this season. I think that we should reward those guys more than some of the greats that, just haven't played as much this year.
Yeah, I mean, I tend to agree with that. I mean, I think playing the game matters. This is why I'm making the big push for total points to be the scoring title. Because total points, I think that's telling me a lot. If you're playing enough to be in the total points chase and you're in the top 10, I know you're actually a scorer who's playing and contributing to winning, most likely. You're at least playing. That more. You're at least playing.
Yeah.
I mean, look, man, it's points. It's a scoring lead. If we can't look at totals, then a guy can play 58 games and win the scoring title. Is that the world we want to live in? No, I don't think so. But I like Lowry. I think he's having a great season. But I went with Jaren Jackson Jr., man. I think that, again, Memphis is the second best team in the West right now. He's having a defensive player of the year caliber season. I mean, the block shots have just been insane. He's up over 3 a game. I think he's 3rd in total blocks, in spite of being, like 10 games behind the rest of the guys that are at the top of the list. So, Jaren Jackson Jr. to me goes hand in hand with what Memphis has been doing. And so, I think he's an all-star.
So comparing Lowry and Jaren, because I went through this a lot in my head. Lowry has just played 700 more minutes than Jaren.
Right. Yeah, he plays a lot. More. Yeah. I had
to reward that. I just kind of had to at the end of the day. Like, I get it. I think Jaren's been phenomenal on defense. I just that ended up being kind of what knocked out Jaren for me. I know he's the defensive player of the year so far. He impacts winning at an exceptionally high level. I just kind of rewarded the guys that have played a little bit more.
Yeah. I don't know. I respect it. I respect it.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to get over in Memphis, man. I want some free,
I love it.
Go to visit.
It's a great place to get over. Okay. Yeah. So I think that we're going to end up 0 for 3 on the front court because my third guy is Paul George.
Yeah. And I don't have a third guy. Oh, wait. Wait. Anthony Edwards is a forward, right?
Anthony Edwards is a guard.
He's a guard. Then yes. I don't have a third big. How did I make that mistake?
Who are your wild cards?
My wild cards were, I have 3 wild cards. That's what it was. Let me fix that. I'll fix that. Go ahead.
We'll fix it in post.
I'll fix my third big. My third guy is going to be Lowry Markkanen, by the way. He was 3rd on my list.
So we're good.
I picked too many guards.
We went 1 for 3 then.
Guard heavy.
That's great.
West. Yeah. So Lowry Markkanen is my third guy. I chose Jaren over Lowry Markkanen. The season Lowry's had. And what's funny is, like, if we had talked about Lowry Markkanen, like if we could go back in time and tell people before he left the Bulls what he was going to do in Cleveland and what he was going to be able to do in Utah, people would have thought we were crazy.
Yeah.
Absolutely crazy. This guy hit the gym, actually committed to playing defense when he was in Cleveland, got some really good coaching, I think, while he was there, and has just turned his career around. I mean, he now looks like a guy who could be a number 1, definitely a number 2 on a winner.
On a great team.
Yeah. Right.
For sure. Okay. So let's get to Paul George now. Paul George this season, I think, has been way underrated, way under the radar in terms of what he's brought the Clippers. This Clippers team, by the way, like, sneaky is currently the 3rd best team in the West. 4th best team in the West behind Denver, Sacramento, and Memphis. They have just kind of risen up. Everyone was complaining about them around midseason. Everyone was, what's going to happen with the Clippers? Can you win a championship when your guys play half the games? Whatever, right? Paul George has played 36 games. He's played like 1,300 minutes this season. He plays a ton when he plays, obviously. Averaging 24 points, 6 rebounds, 5 assists. It's just that he does literally everything on the court. He has become an unbelievable pull-up shooter, obviously, throughout the course of his career, right around the time that his 5th season rolled around. He has become a really, really underrated passer that can initiate offense for them. He can run off of screening actions and take pull-up shots. He can run off screening actions and take catch-and-shoot shots. On top of that, he's been incredible again on defense. Like, he has been absolutely unbelievable. If you look at the way that, for instance, I talk about this all the time, watch him like just run through dribble handoffs, watch him completely break up any ball screen action with his mobility and length and strength to get through that, his recovery ability with his size. Like, it's just all so phenomenal. I think he's the guy on the Clippers right now. Certainly has been through the first, 55 to 60% of the season. It'll be Kawhi in the playoffs. Kawhi has also been great. Kawhi did not meet my personal games played barrier in terms of this, but Paul George, I think, is very deserved of being an all-star this year. He has just been absolutely great.
Yeah, he's back to being a ball hawk. He's a scary guy on an island defensively now. Again, seems to be fully healthy. Yeah, I think that, Paul George kind of, for me, it's more about, just that team in general has been disappointing to this point. And they're trying to figure it out. And Paul George takes some of the blame for that, lack of availability, but 23.5 points a game, you maybe expect a little bit more, especially in a season like this where offenses are kind of crazy. But yeah, Paul George, he's going to be an interesting guy to talk about come playoff time, because I do think everyone's kind of forgotten about him. We pay more attention to Kawhi when he's out there and doing stuff than we do Paul George. And if Paul George can continue to be healthy and play at this level, I mean, the Clippers are going to be good no matter what they look like right now.
Well, it's weird too, because like Kawhi and Paul are going to be so desperately important, because that offense is just terrible to watch. Like they are awful to watch. Like it feels like they don't run much. They run, let's run a primary action, try and get a kick out, and then get it back to Paul or get it back to Kawhi. And that's like the offense right now. Or sometimes it's Marcus Morris, sometimes it's Norman Powell, right? But it's a lot of guys that play a lot of isolation ball and try and create a shot that way. I just thought of this. It's like watching Kentucky's offense, and you don't watch enough college basketball, but you maybe understand how disastrous Kentucky's offense is. It's like watching Kentucky's offense try and just like play with no movement whatsoever, but when they have just like the most elite talent in the league, basically, like Kentucky often does, right? Like they've gone to the Final Four many times. They've gone to, they've won a national title there under John Calipari. It reminds me of watching a Kentucky offense, and I don't mean that as a positive.
They play basketball like it's Red Rover. It's not a fight against a group of bad guys in a movie. You can do stuff together. You don't have to go all at once. And I don't believe in the Clippers like winning a title because they don't have a coherent half-court offense. And I know that like often playoff series and games come down to isolation possessions, being able to just score, get a bucket when you need one in half court. But you got to be able to fool the defenses. And so at least this year, these guys look healthy.
Yeah,
so we'll find out.
Okay. Let's go to the wild card picks here in the West. Okay. Damian Lillard was my top one. Do you have Damian Lillard on?
That's my top one.
Yep. 30 points per game, 7 assists, 46% from the field, 37% from 3, 90% from the line. It's just like an absolutely ridiculously loaded guard here in the West, where he is the 5th best selection among guards.
Because his team isn't as good.
It's because his team isn't as good. And frankly, because Luka and Steph are 2 of the top 7 players in the league right now. John Morant has been incredible, leading the 2nd best team in the league. And then Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is averaging 30 points himself. Like, Dame has been unbelievable. He's been one of the 15 best players in the league again, but it's a wild card spot.
Yeah.
Okay.
60-point game, man. It's so crazy.
Unbelievable. It was funny.
21 of 29 with a heave.
I think that like 2 days before Dame went on this like absolutely ridiculous, insane heater that he's on, I think I did it on like January 10th. I said, you know who hasn't had like the crazy big game this year while everyone else around the league is just going nuts? It feels weird that Dame hasn't had one, right? On the 12th, he went for 50. On the 15th, he went for 40. On the 17th, he went for 44. He went for 60 against Utah in that game that you just referenced. Then he went for 42 last night. Like, as soon as I said it, my man just went on the heater of all heaters, and I love it. It is.
But he's listening to the Game Theory podcast.
I would hope so, man. Shout out those folks up there in Portland, man. Okay, this is the hardest spot for me. This last West wildcard spot. De'Aaron Fox, Jaren Jackson Jr., Anthony Edwards. I also briefly considered Draymond Green. I think that without Dre, again, the Warriors would be in enormous amounts of strife. I ultimately did not end up with Draymond because they are the 17th ranked defense and he derives a lot of his value from defense. He's not the reason that they're the 17th ranked defense, but
yeah, right.
If we're trying to assess value this season, I think that the other guys just haven't beat very slightly. Is there anyone else that and Aaron Gordon, who we talked about briefly already? He didn't make my team, but we've kind of already touched on him to a pretty substantial extent. Anyone else that you considered here?
I mean, I thought about Paul George, and Anthony Edwards was my runner up. I think we're seeing it's a little hop from him. It may not be the leap we all wanted, but it does seem like the game is like really slowing down, and Minnesota finding all this recent success, especially with the ball in his hands. And it's stark. It stands out big time end of games when he doesn't touch the basketball now. When D'Angelo Russell is doing his own thing at the end of a game and you see Anthony Edwards standing in the corner, it catches your eye right away now. And that says a lot to me. Like, hey, this is a situation where Anthony Edwards ought to have the ball. Why didn't he have it? And when I'm saying that about a guy, he moves up the list quite a bit. But ultimately, I wound up going with De'Aaron Fox for the reasons I
did too.
Oh, yeah.
And again, I'm with you. I had Anthony Edwards as my top runner-up. And I felt bad about that. I love Anthony Edwards. If you look at what he has done, like I would have thought after the first 30 games of this year, 25 games of this year, there is no way that Anthony Edwards is going to be even really in the ballpark for this, right? And then you look, basically, since right around Christmas, he's averaging 28 points, 5 assists, 6 rebounds per game, shooting 48% from the field, 40% from three, 78% from the line. He has completely taken over for a Minnesota Timberwolves team that desperately needed it. They have won something like they went on that run where they won I think like 6 of 7, and then recently they went on a run where they won 5 of 6. Like they are firmly right back in the playoff picture, despite making one of the most disastrous trades I've ever seen in my life this offseason. And it's a credit not to Rudy Gobert. It's obviously not Karl Anthony Towns right now. It is all Anthony Edwards that they are back right in this mix. And I think he deserves an incredible amount of credit. I just think De'Aaron Fox has done it all season, which is why I ultimately decided on De'Aaron Fox.
Yeah. And it's not game in, game out, but there are some high level defensive possessions from De'Aaron Fox. And that stands out to me, with a guy with his sort of activity on offense, when he's asking for some of these tougher defensive assignments, especially late in games, crucial possessions, I care about that stuff. And then again, winning matters. So, having a king on the list, I think was pretty important.
I went 2 Kings. That's how much I love the Sacramento Kings. I love this team. They are genuinely my favorite team in the league. Like Orlando is close. I love watching Orlando, but Sacramento, they are the most fun team in terms of like offensive creativity, pace of play. Every game they play is like up and down. It's exciting. It's thrilling. It's a really, really good time. I just kind of love the Kings. Maybe like that. Maybe this is something of a fun bias for me.
The Lakers have turned into that for me.
Slightly over Anthony Edwards. Lakers games are super fun.
Dude, it's like the Expendables. Who's gonna get blown up in this episode? A bunch of old dudes past their prime, maybe a little out of touch with reality, but still scrapping and entertaining, and a bevy of emotions. I mean, that Lakers Celtics game, it was a roller coaster. I was rooting for the Lakers and LeBron James in my house outright. And I mean, it just, I was drawn in by the drama of the Los Angeles Lakers.
Well, I love the Lakers too, because it does not matter who they are playing. They can be playing the
good
Hornets,
or bad.
Or they can be playing the Celtics. Every game is close.
Yeah.
Every single game is a roller coaster.
It's like the Rocky where he comes back and he's old and he's just working on power, right? He's never going to be as fast as the other guys. You're never going to, you're not going to be able to take the beating necessarily, but you can lay it on them, and they're just going as hard as they can. It's honestly, man, like LeBron has been, this is the season that's probably the most impressive LeBron season for me, because he still wants this shit. I like
totally
that game against the Celtics, man. He flipped the script for me, because I talk about this quite a bit. I get bored with some of these characters, right? Like, it's time to move on. I want to get to know the new characters. But the last couple weeks, especially, and that when he lost his shit at the end of that Celtics game,
yeah,
I felt it. I was there with him, man. I loved seeing that sort of competitive fire out of a guy, halfway through his 20th year in a game in January. And now they needed to have that game, and he knew they didn't have the juice to get through overtime. And that may have colored that response. But man, I love to see that kind of response from a competitor. So yeah, the Lakers have been fun as hell to me. They've been my guilty pleasure, because they are not good.
Yeah. Since December 11th, LeBron has played 22 games. He's averaging 34, 8, and 8.
Well, he's just trying to get that scoring title thing out of the way. You got to get it over with, man.
38 years old, and he's averaging 34, 8, and 8 for like a long stretch of like 2 months, basically.
I don't know how he's going to finish the season, Sam. I really don't.
No idea. And they need him.
He's playing on a bad leg, man. Like, he's playing on a bad leg. His foot is all messed up. His ankle's kind of messed up. I mean, these are legit. Like, I mean, and he's playing heavy minutes. This is, I don't know. I can't believe I'm saying this, because it's, often we're like, we have to watch them, but I've been enjoying watching the Lakers.
Oh, and by the way, like, they finally did get him some rest against Brooklyn. And they lost to the Nets, a Nets team without KD, without Ben Simmons, without TJ Warren, like, absolutely got boat raced in that game. And it's just like, I mean, they were close until the fourth quarter, but like they just got boat raced in the fourth. And it was just like, man, it feels like he is just so essential to everything they do. And look, like, Anthony Davis didn't play in that game either. I get it. They had absolutely nobody to go to down the stretch. They needed to run the Russ offense down the stretch, but this team just so desperately needs him every single game, every night out. He has to be Superman, basically. And it's like the coolest thing in the world that this dude is still doing this.
Yeah. I mean, for now. I
don't
know how he's going to do it into April.
Yeah, I'm actually a little bit worried about that. Like, LeBron has kind of picked up some soft tissue stuff here and there over the course of the year.
Look, man, I'm old. You're not old yet, Sam. I'm old. I know what this is like, dude. Him taking that game off after the Saturday night. If I go out on a Saturday night, I'm taking the next game off. So
yeah, Laura and I went down to the city for like 12 hours on Sunday. We didn't even drink. Like, we were just like, okay, we got brunch, we went shopping, and then we went to cricket afterward. We went to a finals cricket match over here, and my body felt dead. Like, I was just walking. I think I got like 15,000 steps. I didn't get like, the number of steps LeBron gets high impact every single game on an NBA court. My body was wrecked.
All right. Well,
I don't know
that
how
doesn't
this
bother
dude's
me.
doing this.
But if I go out,
yeah,
then I'm cooked. Too old for that, man.
It's tough.
Walking, we're good. I can walk all day.
Dave, do you have anything else you need to say before we get out of here?
No.
Should we recap our all-star picks? So,
yeah, sure.
In the East, James Harden, Jaylen Brown, Joel Embiid, Pascal Siakam, Bam Adebayo, Tyrese Haliburton, Julius Randle for me.
Same for me.
I think you as well. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. In the West, John Morant, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Domantas Sabonis, Lauri Markkanen, Paul George, Damian Lillard, De'Aaron Fox.
And I had Aaron Gordon and Jaren Jackson instead of Sabonis and
Paul George. Yep. This was a fun exercise.
Someone make these teams, sim them against each other in 2K, and let me know how many dunks Aaron Gordon gets.
I mean, you would probably win that game because your team also has Jaren Jackson. And your
dunks and blocks, man. That's what we want.
Which is good. That's what you want in an all-star game. Dave, tell the people where they can find you. Tell the people where they can find your work. Tell the people where they can listen to your dulcet tones daily.
All my stuff is at The Athletic, exclusive at theathletic.com or wherever you listen to podcasts. You can find The Athletic NBA show. I'm on the Daily Ding a couple times a week. We got Nerder She Wrote. Do all kinds of stuff. Big plans for trade deadline. So check all that stuff out. And, I'm around.
Dave is around. On this feed, the Schindler podcast will be up Thursday night into Friday morning. What we're going to talk about, who's to say at this point? We'll see if there are some trades. We're about a week out from the deadline as of tomorrow or the next day. So we should be getting close to seeing something happen at some point. But until next time, we will talk soon.